Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Entitled Parents. Story 1. My mom has been abusive and a bully to everyone and now wonders why she is alone. I, 19F, have lived with my mother all my life but moved out a year ago due to multiple traumatic events in the past. As of last week, I got the official PTSD diagnosis for this and I plan to cut ties. She has never been the nurturing type and always just given me the bare minimum that I needed to survive. I'm talking, my friends had to teach me at 13 or so how to brush my hair and teeth cause my mom couldn't be arsed to do it. They also had to explain things you usually learn in school that my mom also failed to show me, like not to hit or even touch other kids if they didn't want it. She left me alone for the first time when I was 6, overnight, and when I called crying 20 minutes after she left, my mom said that she would only come home if there was an emergency, and I was so scared to be alone I almost threw myself down the stairs on purpose so that she would come home. I chickened out and cried myself to sleep. The next day she said, "See, that went well, no need to be a baby about it," and from that point forward just expected me to be okay with her dipping whenever she felt like it. She said I looked like a Chinese prostitute because I had makeup on for the first time and the shade was too pale for me. She said that all the men would be looking at me in that way and that I would be a pretty sight/distraction for them. I was 12, and I was about to go to church for a ceremony. She has repeatedly made it known that she doesn't care about my well-being nearly as much as my chores being done, my grades being good, and people think she's a good, brave, single mom. From not caring that I wouldn't eat or show up at her house for days just to see if that would make her worry to calling me fat even though I'm perfectly healthy and she is the obese one, there is a lot to unpack here. I'm going to therapy and I'm getting better. Responsible for my PTSD is something she did when I was 6 or 7, she would invite our neighbor and her 2 sons over so they could play with me and the grown UPS would talk. Those 2 boys ed me multiple times during those playdates. I begged my mom not to let them come over again with tears in my eyes. She responded by saying I should be grateful those older boys were even indulging me. After all, boys that age don't want to play with girls, much less younger babies like myself. It stopped after she fought with the neighbor. Meanwhile, my memories got repressed and I only remembered these things after 2 years of therapy. That was just the context. Sorry for trauma dumping. My birth giver's most recent escapade is this. Ever since my grandma, her and my aunt's mother, died, my aunt doesn't celebrate Christmas with my mother. She says it's because she thinks the holiday is overrated, but whenever I come to visit on December 24th or 25, to drop off presents, the entire house is decorated beautifully and I'm always invited to stay for dinner, a movie, or a snack. I think my aunt likes to celebrate Christmas, just not with her sister. My sister, the golden child and an enabler for my mother's tantrums, spends one holiday with our mother and one with her baby daddy's family so the kids get even visits. So, imagine my surprise when after a year of little to no contact suddenly I'm called by Mother Dearest, asking me to come home and spend Christmas with family. I have been at my dad's for Christmas for 5 years in a row. I was the first to leave to spend the holiday elsewhere, then came my aunt, and then this year my sister. Why I should throw around my plans because she failed to keep her family close literally every other day of the year is beyond me, and I tell her so. Now of course this is very sad, and I'm a horrible daughter/person for doing this and leaving my poor mother alone on Christmas. Boo-hoo. Some family members have called and told me to not be selfish and it's the time for family to come together. I tell them I am with my family, and if they think it's so sad that this poor, narcissistic, abusive she-devil has to spend a cold December night alone, then they can come and pick her up. No one wants to do that. Big surprise. My aunt is staying out of it. My dad says it's my right to do whatever I want on Christmas and would not recommend going back out of pity and guilt. My mom is crying and calling and guilt-tripping me and begging me to come home. My sister says I'm being cruel and a selfish brat. The woman is my mom and she gave birth to me. Our family is really small, so there are like 7 people on her side. Can someone please tell me I'm not insane? I think I need to hear that. Or would you keep someone like this in your life? Aside from the essay, this is the tamer stuff she did. Edit. For those of you wondering where my dad was during all of this, she basically used him as a donor and peaced out. They both wanted a child but not a relationship, so they agreed that he would be a weekend dad and I would stay with my mom most of the time. Only she started reducing contact the second I was born. She didn't put his name on the birth certificate without anyone's knowledge. He only got to see me like once every 2 months if we got lucky, and even then my mom complained that that was too much. My dad wasn't aware of how I'd been treated, and I only recently told him. Mostly cause I repressed half the bad stuff that happened and the other half I thought was normal as a child. He was horrified. What's weird is that she never seemed to want me around, like she'd leave for days during school weeks with little to no warning, or during summer she'd ship me off to a camp I didn't want to go to. My dad would have gladly had me on all of those occasions. I don't know why she didn't let me go. At this point I think she was just acting cruel cause she could. Story 2. Update: my father has full custody. So yesterday went smoothly. As usual, the judge told me to step outside of the courtroom, but overall my dad got full custody. The original joint custody that he had was given to my mother, so I have to arrange some things now even though I'll never visit. Turns out, she brought a notarized letter from my stepdad for some reason, and thanks to my dad I found out the judge didn't read it out loud. However, my mom tried to paint a picture. She even said that she wanted me in therapy and on medication. She was heavily against me being on medication while living with her. One small issue: due to my dad not filing for child support earlier, he's going to file for it sometime soon. Thank you for all of your words, I appreciate it. 3. Story 3. I'm starting to really dislike children, kind of my family's fault. I, 23F, currently live in a household where my youngest siblings are all under 10 years old, and when my mom decides that she can't be bothered with them and she doesn't want to bother my older sibling, it becomes my task to watch them. Sometimes all day. It has occasionally lasted from the moment that they woke up at 7:30 in the morning to the moment that the youngest of them decided to stop being a monkey at midnight. Sure, those long days are few and far between now, but that's only because they're old enough to be slightly self-sufficient now and I have a full-time job, and originally, 4 to 6 online college courses. Sure, I was also allowed to bring my art tablet, Switch, or school computer down to use while I watch over the small ones, but I often got next to nothing done with them all deciding to be hungry at different times, having to be pried off of furniture, or each other, and sometimes desperately needing to pee, but having waited way too long and needing me to carry them, lest they soil themselves the second that they take a step. In addition to not really having any me time, especially when I was temporarily jobless and had no excuse not to look after them, I also started kind of doing poorly in classes, and considering the fact that a lot of that money was coming out of my pocket, and not just loans, it was particularly frustrating. Now, I've been overlooked entirely. My parents can't find the time to help me with financial aid info anymore, and as a result, I can't get any loans for school or anything. I genuinely cannot afford to go, even though I now have the vaguest idea of what I might try to do with my life. A small detail that I feel the need to add here, as it's still important, but not nearly as story-driven as the rest of it, is that I suspect that I have ADHD. Not an entire list of symptoms, but I rock myself or tap/shake when I'm stressed. I've ground my teeth to the point of damaging them. The sounds of eating, screaming children, or the random loud noises from jumping off of furniture genuinely cause me rage and discomfort. Sometimes, I'm simply in another world for a few moments without having realized that I ever left, and in that short amount of time, there is suddenly a tiny human attempting to scale the refrigerator like it's Mount Everest. I don't feel that I should be responsible for children, especially now that my mild annoyance by their presence has the potential to devolve into near hatred. Even seeing children that are not connected to me in random social settings causes me irritation and disgust, even when they are being perfectly fine. I think the only instance of children that doesn't bother me at the moment is babies. They're small, misshapen humans that just vibe, and when they're not screaming their tiny heads off, I can kind of respect that. Still, the idea of cooking one up in my stomach seems like a when pigs fly in a frozen over hell situation. Of course, my family hates that about me, though. The child didn't do anything to you. This specific child didn't have to. They're just annoying to me. But you were a child once. Cool. Thanks for the reminder. We took care of you just like that when you were that age, and had to clean your little butt. Didn't ask you to do that, but thanks. Leave my butt out of this. But in our religion it says that you have to. You act like infertile people don't exist. So you're going to deny your parents the chance at grandchildren? Yeah, pretty much. Get grandchildren from one of the million other kids you produced. Your emotions don't matter now, you'll change your mind when you're older. Your body will remind you. Yeah, but the crippling pains and fits of vomiting that I experience almost monthly don't exactly instill confidence. I could literally die on the table. God will protect you, and if you die, it'll just be part of his plan. K cool. Not dying for a child that I can already tell I won't like. See, there's this conversation, but also the idea that I don't even have a significant other yet. Moreover, though I'll likely never tell them, I'm pretty sure I'm bisexual, though I feel myself leaning more towards women some days. Any child that I did have either wouldn't be biologically mine or would be shunned and mistreated by them for potentially having two mommies. Or both. It's all so frustrating. I don't like kids. I don't want kids. It's partially their fault for not raising their youngest properly, and instead shoving them onto me. Can we all please move on to a new argument? If you've reached the end, either by reading it or just scrolling, thank you. Sometimes, my family really says or do things that I can't just move on from, and this overused argument about babies and childcare when they barely do the latter bit themselves is just tiresome. Story 4. Mom constantly ignoring my feelings. About 2 months ago my cat who I had only had for 9 months was hit by a car. It was only 9 short months but this cat meant the world to me. We had such a close bond and he was genuinely the sweetest cat I had ever had in my life. For some backstory, I have had cats before but they were always outdoor cats and they eventually would not come back. Before getting this cat, we had a cat for about 7 years who went outside and one day he basically never came back again. I was heartbroken, never wanted a cat again because my family was weirdly against having it stay only indoors. About 3 months later my mom tells me about this cat. At first I was against it and begged for us to make sure this cat stayed indoors. 4 months he did but eventually I noticed she would let the cat go outside. I would be annoyed and ask her not to but she would anyway. The night before my cat's passing I had a feeling he was outside because I hadn't seen him and I started to feel anxious. Long behold he's outside, no one knows where he is. I stayed outside in the dark trying to find him. He eventually came back. I went to bed and woke up to him being dead in the street. My mom had let him out again. Not even a week later she went and got a new cat. Like my cat meant nothing. I can't get over the anger I feel. Anytime I bring it up she changes the subject or barely responds. Except for tonight when other people were around she starts saying this new cat is nicer and randomly started making up shit trying to make it seem like I actually didn't care for my cat. I'm beside myself. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.